Hey guys, this is my ethology presentation on how temperature affects basking activity of Western pond turtles. Some quick background information. Their scientific name is Actinemes marmorata. Their taxonomy was the Western pond turtle was actually an intergradation of the southwestern pond turtle and the northwestern pond turtle. They had some similarities, so they called it the Western pond turtle. The distribution is from the Seattle part of Washington Bay all the way down the Pacific coast to Oregon, California, all the way down to Baja California. Their population numbers have decreased a lot over the past few decades due to habitat degradation, pollution, and invasive species coming in and basically outcompeting them from their home. And they have some distinctive sexual dimorphism. The females have beige color skin with a lot of brown speckles and stripes, and the males don't really have a lot of brown speckles or stripes. And the females are noticeably heavier, the same size, but just heavier than males. Some of their habitat preferences, they live in either flowing waters or still water systems, and they obtain a Mediterranean climate with its dry, hot summers to mildly wet winters. And they need an aquatic habitat to forage for food, bask, and overwinter. And they need a terrestrial habitat mainly for females to nest and lay their eggs in overland dispersal. They are commonly active year-round with some overwintering periods from October to March, and they avoid areas that lack basking sites, and I'll talk about that later. Some predators of Western pond turtles are bullfrogs, largemouth bass, raccoons, skunks, black rats, coyotes, red fox, and raccoons, coyotes, and red fox typically prey on their eggs. And some of the Western pond turtles' food that they eat are crustaceans, insects, annelids, and you'll sometimes see them eat frogs and also fish. And they only eat in the water column because they're unable to swallow on land, so the water is kind of like a suction motion, like forcing the water to go in, so they only eat while they're in the water. So the introduction of my topic, I observed their basking activity according to the temperature. I took in consideration the time of day and the months that I was collecting the data. So these are ectothermic reptiles, so they rely on an outside source like the sun to maintain their body temperature, and this is typically achieved by basking. And thermoregulation is super, super important because it regulates their metabolic rate, their heart rate, locomotive performances and speed, growth and development, and when they're in their incubation period, their sex determination for if they'll be male or female. And the overwintering time I was talking about is basically when the temperature outside gets way too cold for them. Their metabolic rate drops, so they don't really need to hunt or they don't need to eat they can go with months without food. And so they go and burrow down in the mud at the bottom of the pond, and then they just wait until temperatures are right again and they just come on out. So my hypothesis for this experiment was, being ectothermic, do Western pond turtles bask more during warmer or colder temperatures? So my methods, my study area and location was at Cattail Pond in Livermore, California. There's no big trees around, so it's really good. So they have all the sunlight they can get. It's somewhat secluded from bikers and hikers and stuff like that. And it's surrounded with vegetation. So this picture right here is Cattail Pond. I zoomed in on my phone and took this picture. You can see the turtles there, and this pond is surrounded with a bunch of cattails and other plants around. So I did examine their basking activities from February to April. I went 8 different times, and I examined their behavior while doing this for 30 minutes each visit. And I would record their initial and final amount of Western pond turtles every every time I went, I took the air temperature and I strictly observed them so I could see exactly like what they do when they bask. This is my table 1 of my data. I just put in all the temperatures I got, all air temperature, water temperature, time of day, date, all this good stuff, and then disturbances just in case if there's any other factor that could have contributed to why they were not basking. So these are my 2 graphs. They're kind of the same. One's just for water temperature here and one's for the air temperature. We can see as the temperature increases, the basking activity of these turtles increases as well. So there's just more turtles basking at this time when it's warmer out. And okay, so thermal regulation. This is the main part of this experiment. So thermal regulation is super, super important because it regulates all these necessary functions in their body to help them maintain homeostasis. So their heart rate, growth rate, all that stuff, and their performance curve of thermal regulation is usually this bell-shaped curve. So I took this picture from one of my references, and you can see as the temperature increases, so does their frequency of their basking. And as it gets too hot, they will burrow away and wait for the temperatures to cool down just a bit so they can reach their optimum body temperature. That's what OBT stands for, by the way. And temperatures below or above this can cause a decrease in performance. So not a good metabolic rate. They might be more or less hungry. They might be slower to avoid their predators and might not be able to catch food efficiently and all that stuff. So if we compare my data to their data, we can start to see that bell-shaped curve, but in my experiment time, I didn't have a day or days that was way too hot for them. So we can see that they got like from 35 degrees Celsius, but my maximum temperature was 15.3 in the water temperature, so that's lower than air. But yeah, so we can see the start of this, but I'm expecting if I did get water temperatures that are higher than say like 20 to 25 degrees Celsius, this number would go right back down again because it's just too hot for them to stay out and bask. So yeah, this is just me saying that if I got further temperatures, I would get that full bell-shaped curve that we would expect. And some additional observations I saw was that their basking behavior, they all face the same direction. Their necks are fully extended and so are their legs, we can see right here. And I occasionally saw their eyes closed when they were just soaking up the sun, so they're probably really relaxed. So the bigger picture of this experiment is that us being humans, and we like to build everywhere and we like to observe, and we're curious. We like to watch all these animals and stuff, but we really have to be careful because they are a very wary species, so they get startled very easily by runners, bikers, anything, pollution. The pet trade is a huge thing. They get caught and sold as pets, and if you get the wrong education, you might not be able to care for them correctly, so that's a huge reason as to why some of their population numbers have gone down. So we just need to be very careful and considerate of what they need. So knowing that like basking is a behavioral function, we need to be really careful because if they're basking, they can't hunt or reproduce or any other behavior that they need to do. So when they're basking and we disturb them, they get time lost from hunting or reproducing or any other necessary functions that they need to achieve. So it's really important we don't interrupt their thermoregulation process and we let them be. So basically, in conclusion, I tested my hypothesis correct that as temperatures increased, so did their basking activity, but only up to a certain point. So that's what I didn't include. So after their optimum body temperature level has been reached, if you exceed that, their basking activity will go right back down that bell-shaped curve. So yeah. that's my ethology experiment, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's stop this.